Well, I can remember, I think it was Saturday night, used to get the big wash tub out
I don't remember that at all.
and got it out in the kitchen, you know. And we had this big copper boiler on the stove. That's what heated the water.
Mm-hmm.
And used to fill up the tub, and we all had to have our bath, John and Alec and I, one after the other.
Would I have had that? I don't remember that.
No, I don't think you did. You were too little.
Well,
And we all bathed in the same water, you know.
Yeah. You got to go first, because you were the only girl.
You were conserving water long before.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, it had to be
you
heated
think
too
that
by hand.
there was the hand pump by the sink,
Yeah.
and you had to pump all the water, you see.
It was.
Then it was heated on the wood stove.
Yeah.
So it was quite a.
Thank you, Maureen. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Maureen.
You're
Gee.
welcome.
That's a king-size serving.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I remember sitting on that kitchen sink. I guess my mother must have had hot water in a pan or something, but I
Very
can remember.
likely, yeah, in a dishpan.
Yeah, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
But I can remember her washing me and saying, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
today we'll put on your little helio dress."
Oh,
We must have
really?
been going to a tea party or
Oh,
something.
really?
But that's one of the memories. Well, my
Oh.
first memory of my mother. And I was so young when she died. I don't have a whole lot of memories of her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you would have more than me. Yeah. And then I think I probably was a tomboy because the pond comes next in my mind. It was a beautiful pond.
And there was springs. There were springs in the pond,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
That's where we got our water from, and I can always remember there was snakes in it
Oh,
in the summertime.
I don't remember that.
We used to go swimming there.
Oh,
I can remember
in the
these-
pond?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Down on the far end, close near the road where it went. There was a drain thing
Under the road. Yeah, yeah.
and it was down in that area because, like the other end of it, that's where the springs was, and the water was always cold there, whereas
deep.
the other end it was warm.
And deep. And because I can remember I had a little green dump truck. That's telling me that I was a tomboy. And one of my favorite things to do was to make little roads all around that pond with that dump truck. And then remember when Uncle Bob made us the little flat-bottomed rowboat? Going out in that.
The little punt.
Yeah, and we were always warned not to go in that corner where the springs were because it was very deep there.
Well, it was a mile west of Deroche, and it was what they call now North Nacomin Road. We were a quarter of a mile from the Nacomin station, which was it was a busy stop on the CPR in those days because, excuse me, everything came on the train. They loaded up the milk cans in the morning and took them into Vancouver. The empty cans came back later in the day. All our supplies came on the train, groceries, feed for the cattle and chickens and all the mail and just everything came by train. There were no trucks on the road. In fact, there wasn't much of any roads around back in the 20s.
And one of my favorite things to do as I was growing up, and I guess we all did it, was counting the boxcars on the CPR freight trains.
Oh, we used to go out and wave to, there was always the engineer,
Yeah.
and there was a brakeman, and then there was a caboose man.
And do you remember the hot boxes?
Oh, yeah. Oh, many of those,
That's
yeah.
when the wheels caught fire,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
mhm,
Yeah,
yeah.
and they'd have to stop the train and put that out. And that was quite exciting. Life wasn't very exciting in those days. Well, it was to us. I mean, it was just different.
We're about a quarter of a mile up from the station. There was 160 acres altogether, but there was a lot of bush on it, and there was small mountains on it too. And my dad had sheep, years and years ago, and of course there was sheep trails all over that mountain. God, we used to run up and down that mountain all the time.
You know what amazes me now? Roger and I hiked right up to the top of what I guess was called Deroche Mountain, and we were warned not to do that again unless we took bear spray with us.
Oh,
And all the time I ran all over that mountain, never saw, well, the coyotes were there, we knew that because we heard them.
yeah, but we never saw
a
them.
bear, never saw a cougar, never saw
No,
any
no.
wildlife like that at all.
No, we used to climb those mountains all the time, and I can remember there was a kind of a rugged road up there, and there was a big flat area. We used to call it the flats, and just on the right hand side when you were up before you got right into the flat, but it was flat level. It was a kind of a marshy area in there, and in the springtime, it was just full of trilliums. And we used to go and pick these trilliums, you know.
Just a mass, just covered white.
In 1921, there was a midwife. She was a Nurse Anderson, and she lived about a mile down the railway track from where our place was. And her husband was a roadmaster on the CPR, and he had one of these old push carts that he rode on the tracks with, and she used to come riding up. She'd stand up behind him on the cart, and she delivered all the babies around that area. Well, there were no cars. Nobody had cars, you know. Yeah, she even went across the slough and delivered babies over across there, like Stan the Browns, you know, different ones over in that
Tell
area.
the story of Dad taking Alec across the field because you were going to be born, and what had followed him.
Yeah, because it was a snowy day in November, 21st of November, when I was born. It was about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And anyway, my dad, he bundled Alec up. Alec was just was a year and 2 weeks old then. And there was good neighbors. They lived, it would be, they were farther down the road, and then there was a road into the place. It was over by the Common Mountain.
Just below our farm, really, the Clarios.
It was Clarios, and he took Alec over there to look after her because she had me. She had me
coming.
And anyway, it was a snowy day, and Dad was walking. He went across the field, you see, which was shorter than having to go all the way around the roadway. And anyway, there was a coyote followed him. John passed away in 1968. He had cancer in the lung, but he was a smoker. He smoked all his life. I can remember when, I don't know how old he'd be, maybe into his teens. He used to get, I don't know if it was toilet paper. I don't know if we had toilet paper. We probably did by this time because we had the bathroom. They built the bathroom. Uncle Bob.
What year did that happen?
Gosh, I don't remember, because before that we had our biffy. You remember the woodshed there, and back behind it was the old toilet, and we always had the Eaton's catalog in there. That's what you use for toilet paper.
Jeez, when you think of it, that was pretty rough.
And back of that, there was another building there, and we called it the Brooder House. And Dad used to get day-old chicks, and he had some sort of there was some sort of a heat he had there. Now, I can't remember what it would have been. It was a big sort of a metal thing.
Probably an old stove?
Over this, you know, and the chicks were under it to keep them warm, you see. Because he used to get these day-old chicks every year, you know. And then the old hen house, there was a fence just a little ways over from there, and there was a great big wide gate there, and there was a chicken house there.
I remember that, up against the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess we must have had toilet paper by that time, because John used to get paper, and he'd get tea leaves, and he'd make himself a cigarette.
Is that right?
Because he had no money to buy tobacco.
I never learned that. Well, what I remember about that old outhouse, when I used to go out there, we had some banty chickens.
Yeah,
and this old rooster used to chase me.
Yeah,
banty roosters can be kind of...
Yeah, it can be pretty wild.
Wild, yeah.
Yeah, Alec used to have the banties, you know.
And then he had ducks,
and
too.
Yeah, he had ducks down by the pond.
Did he used to chase them from that duck house down to the pond
Yeah,
every
I
day?
guess he did, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah. Yeah, I still like ducks to this very day.
John was born in 1961. He was
No, not 60.
Oh, 1916. He was born. He was born in Vancouver, and then our family lived at Port Coquitlam for a while on Dominion Avenue.
The Red Barn.
My dad he rented a farm down there, and Alec was born. I think he must have been born in the hospital.
I don't know.
I really don't know, but I think he must have been
Probably.
born in the hospital. And then my dad bought that place at Deroche. He bought it in January 1921, and then he moved up there. Alec, he went to normal school. He went to senior matriculation mission after high school at Dudney. Then he went to normal school for 1 year, and that was, and he got a teaching job up at Simoon Sound. It was people by the name of Mans, and they had a floating. They had a logging camp up there, and they had a floating place there where they had a cookhouse where they cooked for the loggers, and they had a school and everything right on this. It was a big floating building, like you see, and Alec taught school there for 1 year, and then when he finished teaching that year, it was 1941, he came down and he joined the Air Force right away. And then most of his training was done in the prairies. He was in Alberta and Saskatchewan. He was down at Boundary Bay for a while. He ended up at Rivers in Manitoba. That's where he graduated from there in July 1942. And then he came home on leave, and he left on the 1st of August. I always remember him getting on the train down at the mission station to go to Halifax. Then he went overseas. He was only there 6 weeks till he lost his life. But he was put right into, see, he was air crew. He was a navigator, and he was a pilot officer. And Britain was so short of air crew. You know, it took time to train them, and anyway, he never really had that much training. He was on one of the bombing raids. They were bombing over the Kiel Canal, and their plane got back to Britain. He was stationed in Yorkshire.
Croydon?
No. Can't think of the name of the place offhand. Anyway, they were coming in for a landing over the airport, and the plane was all shot up, was coming in one motor, and I guess the other motor gave out, and there was a row of tenant houses alongside the airport, and this was 2 o'clock in the morning, and the plane crashed into these row of houses, and the whole thing caught on fire, and there was 4 adults in those houses and a 6-year-old girl. The adults got out, but this 6-year-old girl, she died in it, as well as there was 5 of them on the plane. They were all cremated. They couldn't identify one from the other, and they just gathered up the remains, and they buried them in the Ripon Cemetery, and they buried them side by side in alphabetical order.
4 Canadian boys,
Yeah,
and one English boy.
One English fellow from East Croydon in London, yeah. Yeah, and his dad went up to the funeral. He was there, and he wrote the most beautiful letter. He sent each one of the boys' family, sent them this nice letter. Yeah, it was sad, you know. What a shock. He was reported missing. First of all, the telegram came that he was missing in action, and then it was just a few days later that the one came that he was killed in action.
He would have been 21?
He was,
20.
it was October the 14th, and he would have been 22. His birthday would have been November the 7th. Yeah. And Alec, he loved to bake, you know. He would bake cakes and pies.
I don't remember that, but I'm sure
Yeah.
I believe you. Yeah.
Yeah. I would make the meat and potatoes and that, and he would make a pie or cakes, and he loved doing it.
Mhm.
So that was good.
You probably like to eat it.
Yeah, we worked together good, him and I.
Oh, from the farm to Mission? Oh, lots, every Saturday to take a piano lesson, which I didn't like very much. We sure didn't go to the movies very often, though, and that was the closest theater. I don't know, when we went to town, we had other things to do. Yeah, and then we would quite often go to Aunt Peggy's, who lived up on the hill on 2nd Street, I guess.
Second
for
and
tea.
Horn. Second and Horn.
Yeah.
There was no 2nd Street through there at that time. There was a big kind of a sandy hill there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can remember we used to climb down there and then slide down on our backsides. The worst trip I remember going into Mission was I was 8 years old. That was the spring of 1929. And
I hadn't been born yet.
No, you were born later that year. I had diseased tonsils.
Oh.
And the infection broke out in this arm. This whole arm was swelled right up. And Dr. McIntyre was our doctor. Well, he was. There was only 2 doctors in Mission at that time, and he was a school doctor. And he had he was kind of cross-eyed. But anyway, he came out to the farm, and he took me in the back of that car back to that Mission hospital.
Did? Oh, the doctor.
Yes, he did, The only thing nice part of it was he had a nice blue car.
Hello.
So I spent a whole week
Hello.
in that Mission hospital, and all I could think about was how I could get out of this place.
Not too easily.
Yeah, we had a nice hall in Deroche, and we used to have big Christmas concerts in those days, We used to put on a big concert.
And I can remember one of the, I think I might have been 5. I wouldn't have been, that seems to ring a bell. I wouldn't have even been at school. And I think John was getting me quite hyped up about Santa Claus was coming.
Oh, yeah.
And I can remember saying, well, how is he going to get here? And John said, oh, he's going to land his plane, I think he said, right up the back of the school there.
His plane.
I think that's what he said. Anyway, it was really had me hyped up. Or maybe it was his horse and reindeer, or his sleigh and
Horse
reindeer.
and sleigh.
Yeah. I just forget, but I do remember that. One of the things I really remember was my swing under the big fir tree.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was, the front lawn was a wonderful place too, if we
Yeah.
ever had some time out to really relax and visit with each other and with our neighbors and girlfriends mainly. One I just heard just recently passed away, and she was going to come down to see me in June. Doreen Robson, and they just lived about half a mile towards Deroche. And we used to ride bikes. We'd ride those bikes way up the top of Agassiz Mountain and back. That was a big thing to do on Sundays. And well, just any friends that were around, really, and there weren't really that very many. Teresa Deroche lived across the railway tracks the other way, but we didn't get together
Then there was
all that
Lovedales
much.
down at the,
Well, they weren't my
Common
age,
Station.
though, you see. They were your age more.
well, Evelyn and I was the same age.
Yeah.
And then Mabel was 2 or 3 years younger. And you were more like Edna's age. Yeah.
And the things I can remember as toys sort of thing, well, the swing under the big tree, but I can also remember that teeter-totter that John or Alec must have made. Do you remember it went up and down, then it went round and round?
Yeah.
And I think they got it going round and round so fast one day that I fell
fell
off and
off.
it had to be dismantled. That was the end of that. So I think I was kind of in the doghouse with my big brothers and sister.
You were the little girl.
I was the little brat, I guess. Yeah. Summer holidays where Clarinda was always in the house doing the housework and cooking. and I was out tramping the hay. I think maybe Hope I've got a picture of that there. And
Well,
then
I've
in
got
the
a
fall
hay
it was
picture, but I think it's our dad and John that's in it.
maybe, well, I was up in that hay wagon.
With the,
And then it was tramping the
team-
silo
the
a little
team-
later on when they were filling the silo.
with the
That-
team of horses, you know, and they used to
Yeah,
bring the,
Bob and Bill.
there's the wagon. And they used to have the big hay fort. Used to pull it in a pile of hay, and the horses pulled. There was a cable. The horses had to pull it up into the loft, and then they would pull another rope to dump the fort load of hay. Every year when the river came up, what we called the prairie, would
Down
belong
below
to-
the
yeah,
farm. Yes,
that
yeah,
used to all
yeah.
flood.
Yeah,
It was all
yeah.
it was all water there.
Yeah,
And I can remember John and I were down there with this punt,
punt.
Punt.
P-U-N-T. Punt.
and I can remember the water was quite deep there
Mhm,
too.
mhm.
And I can remember us getting stuck on top of a fence post.
Oh, Did you get out and push it?
I think you had to keep working the paddles or something.
Gosh.
Oh, we had lots of fun when we were growing up. You know, we worked darn hard. You know, never had any money or anything. You know, I could remember. You remember Uncle Alan?
Oh, yeah.
They had the bake shop in Vancouver. They often used to come up on it must have been a Sunday, I guess. They'd come up, and Uncle Alan, he would always have a roll of bills with him. You know, because I guess they didn't bank the money from the bake shop.
Bake shop.
And anyway, I can always remember him giving me $5.
Ooh,
God,
boy.
I was rich, and I got Eaton's used to have their Eaton's Beauty doll,
Mm-hmm.
and I got this nice big doll with that $5.
Oh, wow. And then picnics. I think our big picnic of the year would have been the Fraser Valley Milk Producers Picnic. And mostly I remember it being held in Agassiz at the experimental farm.
Well, we used to go to Cultus
Well,
Lake.
tell
a lot.
your story, please,
Yeah.
about Cultus Lake. That's a
Yeah.
funny one.
My dad had an old car, you know, and going to Cultus Lake, it's quite a hill you have to go up there. And I guess you weren't there. I don't remember you being there.
No, I probably hadn't been born yet.
And anyway, there was John and Alec and I there anyway. And going up this hill, the old car stalled. And anyway, so us three kids, we had to get out and push the car up the hill. But you know, Dad used to rent the Anderson place that was down. It was about a mile farther down the road. And anyway, he used to take the cattle down there in the summertime for pasture. And there was an old barn there with a dirt floor.
I remember that. I do.
And we used to milk the cows there. And John and Alec and I, we all had our cows that we had to milk.
Yeah.
And I could remember I had this 3-titter one, and she had nice big long tits. She was easy to milk. And Dad had this old car. There was no roof on it because there was a creek there. There wasn't much water left in it. We had to go over that creek. You'd be bouncing up and down in this car, and we'd have the milk cans in it.
Gee. Anyway.
Oh dear. And then we'd go pick blackberries. Alec and I, we'd get our cow milk, and then we'd go and we'd pick blackberries. And Dad used to take the blackberries. There used to be a lot of dancing plums on the farm.
Mm-hmm. I remember them.
And they used to pick these plums, and they took them down to what they called was the co-op at Hatzig. And Alec and I picked these blackberries, and the co-op took them, you see. Excuse me. And we'd get our little check. It was about November when we got our little check. And I can remember getting a little check. I don't know, can't remember, it wasn't that much. And one year I bought a skirt. So clothes were only about, $1 or $2 for anything you bought.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a skirt
From Eaton's
and
catalog, maybe?
and something else. I probably got them out of the catalog. And then I had some money left over. I bought some Christmas presents for everybody.
Gee,
Out of my little bit of money I earned picking blackberries.
that's what a good heart she had, yeah.
Although we had a lot of fun when we were growing up,
Well, at least we thought it was fun.
climbing those mountains, you know. And
That was, yeah, I can remember having a little playhouse up there on a stump, I think, with all the furniture made from apple boxes or orange
Yeah.
boxes. Remember, they used to be kind of, I don't know what they were.
It was about yay long, and there was a compartment in the center.
But
Or a
they made
divider in
dandy
the center.
furniture.
Well, in those days, you make do with anything you had around.
And it's a wonder I didn't have more wood ticks, but I can remember one day, and I was not very old, and I can remember going into my mother and pulling my ear a little bit and saying, "Is that part of me?" And it was a wood tick on my ear.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of close, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because didn't they say they burrowed in your ear?
Yeah, mm-hmm. They could be bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be fun.
It was a one-room school when John and I went to it. It was just a one-room school, and then they built the other room on as there was more kids. They built the second room on in 1932. My dad was the secretary treasurer of the Deroche School District for, 16 years?
A long time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there was no, mission school district. Every little community had their own school district, like it was Deroche School District. And we used to walk to school. And in the winter time, that old east wind would be blowing so cold, you know. And we walked up the road. There was we called it the bluff. It was a kind of a little bit of a mountain there. And the road went around this. And boy, when you get up there, oh boy, that east wind would just hit you, you know. And we put newspapers underneath our coats to break that wind.
By the time I came along, being 8 years younger,
Mm-hmm.
Brother John had the contract with the school bus, and I used to get to ride to school a lot on the school bus, particularly high school, which I had to go on to Dudney High School. And remember, he took the kids from Deroche to Dudney?
Yeah, mm-hmm, yeah. Because first of all, like when Alec went, he didn't have that bus. You see, they hadn't put it on.
Yeah.
And anyway, he used to ride his bicycle down the railway track to go to high school at Dudney. And there was somebody else that rode with him now. Was it Frank Sawyer? I think it was, because he was about Alec's age.
Were they Sawyers living along the road?
Yeah, they just
road
lived
at that
along the
time?
road there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, because when I went the next year, then they got that bus. It was like an 8-passenger van thing that took us.
Well, the first one he had was a big car. That would have been the 8-passenger. And then
Yeah.
he got that yellow school bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I never rode in the yellow school bus
Yeah.
because I only went for 2 years, and then I had to drop out of school and go home and take my mother's place.
Yeah. Yep. You know, another interesting thing that we had at the local store, and I remember more of Mr. and Mrs. Murray Smith, and how good they were through the war years, that if there was something coming in, that they would
yeah.
save it for us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She got me a pair of nylons for when I got married in 1946.
The little country general store, they had everything in it.
It was about a
I
mile.
guess it was about a mile.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I could remember cousin John, he used to like to come up and stay at the farm with us, you know. And anyway, my dad had rented, it was up above Deroche. What was the name of that place now? He had it rented up there, and they used to take the cows up there for pasture. And so anyway, John and I had to go up to Deroche, and when my brother John was herding the cattle down, we had to watch and make sure that they came down the road, that they didn't go on the railway track. So anyway, John had 5 cents to spend, which was a lot of money in those days. So anyway, he had his 5 cents. We went up there and we made sure the cows went down the road. And so we went up to the where the gas station was, because it was Wednesday And the store always closed Wednesday afternoon, and so did the gas station. And there was a row of cabins just back of
I remember those. Yeah.
the gas station. And so anyway, it was she was a brother to Charlie Reed that ran the store. Noe Reed was her name, and she lived in one of these cabins. So anyway, we went up there, and of course we didn't realize that it was Wednesday and everything was closed up, you see. So there was a bell there. It says, "Please ring for service." So John rang the bell. And she came out of the cabin and she saw us two kids standing there. And boy, did we ever get a lecture, for ringing that bell. And John said, first of all, he says, "I want a chocolate bar." she really gave us a talking to.
Because she would have had to go to the store and get it.
Well,
for
she
one
had
thing.
she had keys. She figured somebody wanted gas. You see. And here were these two kids. Anyway, she opened up the little store there, and we got our chocolate bar.
Oh boy. And I was born in what I like to call the old mission.
Yeah, the old mission hospital.
Which Clarinda now looks up to from
it's
her
just
dining room
up the
window.
street from where I am.
And it's still there. It's an old brick building, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, this is going back a long way too. This is probably when I was in grade 1. Going back, I don't know if it would have been Smith's store or not. And they had the glass jars of candies.
Oh yeah.
All the penny candy out in
mhm.
front. And boy, if I could get a penny, I remember going up there and buying a teddy bear.
Mhm.
And a teddy bear was, it would have been red, not licorice. What would it have been? Mint? It was very strong, covered in chocolate coated teddy.
mhm.
Boy,
Mhm.
yeah. So that was what a treat. Here I'm jumping up and not jumping up, crawling up on the horse with all the harness on, I guess. Oh, and this is a picnic on our front lawn. This would be the Ayrshire Breeders' picnic. That was another one that,
Well,
I don't know if we had it every year or not, but I can remember the year we had it on our farm.
Well, I had a picture, but I don't think it was the Ayrshire Breeders, because Aunt Peggy and Uncle Bob were at it.
Oh, yeah. That's
Because
the
I've got a
flag.
picnic on the farm somewhere. I was thinking it was the Caledonian Society.
Oh, and where was the picture taken?
This one,
At our place?
by the side of the house.
Oh, gosh, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. 1940.
And the decorated bike. But this is a picture, it must have been the bike, and that is the one that was bought just after the war. And I
Oh.
think that thing had metal pedals on it.
Oh, yeah.
And, okay, bikes. And it's all decorated. Now, I don't know that, I think we must have had a parade up at the Morton place.
Yes, yes.
Don't ever remember having one
Yeah.
in
Deroche. It was a kind of a rugged road to drive up there,
Yes.
up to the place.
Yeah. But then we used to be able to walk up through
Yeah,
the back of
because
our place and crawl through the fence.
Yeah, it come to the back of one of our fields up on the hill there.
And dogs, the first dog I remember was Rex, that
Yeah.
black dog.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I guess
we had Rover.
we had
I've got
Rover.
a picture of Rover.
our collie here.
Yeah, there is Rover.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same picture. That must be your picture.
He wasn't allowed in the house unless my dad had gone to mission by himself.
We never brought the animals in
Well,
the house.
then we brought Rover in the house. I can remember one day sitting him up at the kitchen table. He was
Oh, really?
Don't you remember that?
No, I don't
You
remember
must
you
have
having
been
him.
there.
Oh,
Okay.
you must have sneaked him in.
Well, I would have graduated from senior matric in mission the year of the flood. I can remember standing on Aunt Peggy's front steps. I think the last time that swinging
be
bridge
48.
closed,
Yeah,
1948.
Yeah, the mission bridge went out, yeah. Mhm.
Then I went to Vancouver Normal School the next year, graduated from there in 1949. Then I got a teaching job in Bradner. My dad always wanted me close to home. The next year I moved on to Matskoye, a bigger school. And then the year after that, my friend Yvette and I
went
decided
up
we
to
were going to go further afield, so we applied to, it was Ashcroft District. And Yvette got grade 1 and 2, and I got grade 3 and 4 in Clinton. And we went up there for the 1 year. Of course, they wanted us to stay longer, but we said, no, we're only staying the 1 year. And then after that, I came to the island, and 1 year up in Yubo. And then I came to Victoria, and I was there for many years after that. So that's when I moved out.
Yeah.
Our farm was a favorite place for all the city cousins to come to. Yeah, and
But we used to always have Christmas Day in our home because our mother would never go out on Christmas Day. She felt that was the time to be home with your family. But Boxing Day, we always had the Mission family up. There was Uncle Bob and Aunt Peggy and John and Nessie and Bob. And they all, every year, they come faithfully for Boxing Day. I had a picture of Uncle Bob and Nessie and I out in the yard. And
With the hats on.
we had our hats on, you know, that you have the Christmas crackers. And then New Year's, we always had to go to Mission for New Year's with Aunt Peggy. Aunt Peggy and Uncle Bob and their family.
and she would have turkey because we
Yeah.
didn't have turkey. My
Yeah.
dad believed in you ate what you raised.
Yeah.
And I'm not, did we have a chicken for Christmas Day? I just can't remember what we had. We always
Probably.
had lots to eat
Oh,
living
yeah,
on the farm.
right, yeah,
Good
yeah,
food.
because we had pork and chickens and.
But turkeys weren't as available in those days
veal,
as they
'cause
are now. Were they? I mean, turkey was maybe...
we didn't have beef. We had veal
Yeah,
and chickens
yeah,
and
pork.
pork and lots of vegetables because we had a great big vegetable garden. I can remember out there weeding that garden. Yeah, and after I was married, I didn't think we'd go to Aunt Peggy and Uncle Bob's for New Year's Day, but Aunt Peggy insisted that we come.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we did. And I could always remember Uncle Bob carving the turkey. And Aunt Peggy whispers to me, she says, "You get George started to carve." So anyway, the next Christmas, I'd bought a turkey. And anyway, we had the big eating store in Mission. And they had these nice carving sets, 3-piece carving sets in a case. They were made in Sheffield, England.
Mm-hmm.
And they had them on sale. So I bought this, and I wrapped it up and put it under the tree for George. Anyway, he gets this parcel and he opens it up. I never forget the look on his face. He thought he was getting a wrench. He says, "What am I going to do with this?" I said, "Well, you're going to learn to use it." Anyway, he did. He carved the turkey that day, and he carved turkey every time after that. He used to carve big roasts of beef down at the Legion, you know, when they had these. They used to have these dinners quite regularly there, you know. But anyway, he learned fast how to use it.
Well, you had Cousin John, but it was Cousin Bob
Yeah.
that we exchanged holidays with, and he would come up to the farm, and
Yeah,
I
I-
would have the pleasure of getting my little suitcase packed and going into Mission for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aunt Peggy would send us with a bowl down to the store at the corner on Main Street. I forget the name
Was
of
it Debras's departmental store?
Could be. They had ice cream anyway, and they
Yeah.
would so many scoops of ice cream in that bowl, and we'd run back up the street.
Before
Well,
it
I mean, they
melted.
didn't have the fridge. They had
An ice box. She had an
the
ice box.
on the
Yeah,
back
because she
porch.
gave us our ice
Did
box.
she?
Yeah,
Did
'cause
you
we-
use it?
Yeah, we used to use it. Yeah, before
Yeah,
we had
yeah.
a fridge. Yeah.
Where did you get the ice?
Well, we used to get it somewhere in Mission. Used to get a
Oh,
block
you
of
bring it
ice.
home. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
mhm.
But Clarinda was busy in the house as Bob and I were roaming all over the farm and doing lots of stuff, I guess.
Yeah. mhm.
But you used to make us Jello. Yeah, Jello, all nicely set in a jar. By the time we got up to the top of the mountain, it was
it was
all melted and it was pop. So we never did have Jello up there. We could drink it. Yeah, so that's another memory.
Well, we never had Jello when we were young kids. I can remember going to Elsie Roberts' birthday party, and she must have been, maybe 7 or 8 years old. And her mother had made Jello for her birthday party, red Jello. And that was the first time I'd ever tasted Jello. I don't ever remember having a
No,
birthday party.
No, I don't really either. I might have had one when I was 16, some of the girls around. But I certainly, I can remember going to lots. And a favorite gift to take maybe was one of those little box handkerchiefs,
Oh, yeah.
of 3 handkerchiefs.
Yeah.
And another one was colored ankle socks.
Oh, yeah.
I can remember what a treat it was to have pretty colored ankle socks.
Well, that's the only birthday party I remember going to was Elsie Roberts.
You'd think we were very poor.
Well,
I mean, maybe in a way we
Well,
were, but I mean,
well, we
we
just-
didn't lack for much, and everybody was the same.
well, sure. Nobody had any money, but you know, on the farm we had lots to eat. We had fruit trees and lots of fruit and everything, you know.
We just had to work to get it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We learned to work. I'm telling you. We didn't have to buy much flour and sugar, things like that, you know.
Yeah, I can remember my dad at the bottom of those steps. If we weren't up in the morning, he'd be calling up
He'd
the
be
steps.
yelling.
Time to get up.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful dad. So
Well, our
kind-hearted.
he was very strict,
Yeah.
but he was very kind and
Oh,
good.
yeah, yeah.
And boy, you know, we were warned if you got in trouble at school, boy, look out when you got home. So we never got in trouble at school.
When did your father pass away? 'Cause he,
1971. He was coming up for his 87th birthday. He would have been 87th on November the 28th.
And her mother was 1939, September 17th
Yeah.
of
how old was she?
1939.
She was only 53. She had cancer of the bladder. Yeah, well, I think she was, because she went to the Vancouver General Hospital in September, I guess it was, but I can remember that summer. She wasn't very well at all, you know, because she'd get up in the morning, she'd make breakfast, then she'd go back to bed, and I would do the dishes, sweep the floors, and clean up and all that, you know. And I guess she should have gone to the doctor long before she did, you know. But anyway, she went into the hospital in September. She never got back home until Christmas time. And us kids, you know, it wasn't easy to get into Vancouver. Our dad used to go in quite often, you know. And he finally took us in one time. It was in November. And I can always remember, saw my mother, I cried and I cried and I couldn't stop crying. It was awful, really, you know. It didn't help her either, you know.
No.
And that was the only time we saw her. All those 3 months she was gone, you know.
I wonder,
But
I can remember having new patent leather shoes to wear. And I can remember showing her those shoes.
Oh,
It must have been the same day.
could have
I
been.
was so proud, and I probably was too young to do the crying as
Yeah.
you did.
Hmm.
I didn't really know what was going on.
But she was never well after she came home, you know. No.
Well, to show how kind he was, I remember just, I guess, a day or two after our mother died. And I guess we were all pretty sad, and he said to me, "Don't worry, we'll get along all right." I always remember those words.
Yeah, it was very sad, you know.
And then we all grew up and went away, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I met George at a dance at Dudney. That was about the only thing we did. There was dances all around the place. And John used to take us, 2 or 3 girlfriends, you know, piled them all in the truck and go to these dances.
No
you know.
seat belts, you just
Oh,
all
no,
got in and
no,
sat in each
no,
other's
you
knees.
just- yeah, right, you know. And anyway, all the fellows would stand across the top of the hall, and the girls would be sitting on the chairs around. When the music started, the fellows all made a beeline for the girls, and they picked up the girl they wanted. And George picked me up one night. Guess he took a liking for me. Him and Harold, they was to ride their bikes down to the Dudney dance, you know. And then he used to come over to see me on the bike all the time.
I can remember George coming on his bike to see Clarinda. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had the girls' club.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I was
In
secretary
Deroche.
of the girls' club, yeah, during the war years.
Put on
Yeah,
dances
we
in
put
the
on
Deroche
dance in the
Hall,
old Deroche
wasn't it?
Hall,
Yeah.
and then we sent parcels to the boys overseas and gave money to the Red Cross. And so one night we had one of our dances, and I was a good girl. I always went home after the dance. And anyway, the next day I walked up to Deroche for some reason, and Maxine World, she lived in the big house next to the school there, and she was out in the yard, so I was talking to her, and she says to me, "Did you see what happened to her hall?" I says, "No, what happened?" She says, "It burnt down." I couldn't believe it. It burnt down after the dance.
Wonder
So-
what happened.
Somebody had put
Cigarette
a
or something?
cigarette in the ash can,
Oh, God.
or the garbage can. You see, burnt the hall down.
Really? Yeah.